Good afternoon. Here we are with day five's nugget. We're dealing with seeing life from God's view. And I don't know about you, but just to see my life, how God viewed my life it should be amazing because God created me to be perfectly made in his image. He designed me, even though I'm flawed on the outside, even though my beard gets gray, even though my skin might not look like I want it to look, God is still blessing. So here we are on day five, seeing life from God's view. I don't know about you, but when I see my life, from my perspective, I feel like I failed at some things. I feel like I failed, and I didn't like to see the fact that I failed, because what it made me feel like was, it made me feel like not only did I fail myself, but I failed my family, because we always talk about what's in the name. Let's be honest. We talk about how our name has value, how our name is our lineage. It brings about something about our family. So here it is, day five, seeing life from God's view. I don't know about you, but this little nugget that I have for us today, let's start with Luke 16:10. He who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. Meaning, hey, the little small things that we have faith in, we need to be understanding that we have to also be faithful in those little things in order to be able to endure and get big things. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous and also as much. When we're not doing what we're supposed to do, when we're not seeing our lives like God sees our lives, we tend to draw unrighteousness towards us. Everything in life seems to look good from our perspectives when there are no problems around. You know, when no problems around, we feel like everything is good. But as soon as a problem arises, we find ourselves at ends with ourselves, because we feel unwanted, we feel failed, we feel like we failed. So our lives are built on how we define them. The way we define our lives, if we speak life, if we define our lives as being something good, then our life is going to be something good. But when we look at our life as having no value, then that begins to speak death in our life. So our lives have no value. The value that God has placed on us is lost. And what we seem to fail to realize is that God told us that we are his. We have worth. We have worth towards him, and we're worthy to be called his children. So there are too many of us that believe that our lives are our own, and that we think that the way we live our lives and see our lives will not have an effect on our destiny. Well, I stopped by to tell you with this little nugget that everything you do can affect your destiny. When you talk evil or ought against your brother or your sister, it affects your destiny. When you talk bad about your loved ones, it affects your destiny. When you don't pray like you were supposed to pray, it affects your destiny. But I stopped by to tell you that when you put your trust and your faith in God, when you lean not to your own understanding, in all thy ways you acknowledge him and begin to see your life like he sees your life, you begin to see the value that he's entrusted in you. Let's look at the book of James chapter 4 verse 14. It says, yet you do not know that your life will be what will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. What am I saying? All I'm saying to you is that you don't know what tomorrow holds. You don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. You don't know what lies ahead. But God knows your destiny, because remember, we told you that you were preordained, predestined, and predetermined from the start of this thing. God thought about you. We don't know from one day to the next what our lives will be like. Some days we might have some ups. Some days we might have some downs. Some days we might not understand if we're coming or going. But God says, just be patient and hold on. Hang in there. You got to understand, when you begin to see your life from the same view that God sees your life, you see value, you see joy, you see peace, you see love, you see everything that God wants you to see when you begin to tap into how he is tapped in and connected with you. So my dears, on today, my thought is that life here on earth gives us a daily test. We're tested daily. Somebody's going to try us. Somebody is going to try to push buttons. We're tested daily. And some tests we will fail. And the way we view our test helps us to grow and develop character. Let me stop right there. When you look at your test as something that's going to take you out, it's not developing anything but fear. And God has not given us the spirit of fear, but the Lord has given us power. So you got to understand that. Stop looking at your test as something that has come to take you out, because sometimes your test is just a testimony for those that have yet to experience what you're going through. Sometimes God will seem like he's not with us. You do understand, sometimes it seems like he's not with us, but sometimes he comes to your faith can be tested. Let me remind you how God removed himself from Hezekiah in 2 Chronicles chapter 32 and 31 to test him and to see what was really in his heart. Sometimes God removes himself from us just to test us and see what's in our hearts, see what's really on the inside of us. And sometimes those higher than thou, those mighty Christians that's afraid to go back and apologize for little things that could affect any individual, sometimes those tests can destroy your character. And if you allow your character to be destroyed, what ends up happening is that you allow everything that you're trying to do in life to be affected because you did not do what God told you to do. So what would you say if your faith was tested repeatedly? I know some of us would say God is not around, so I don't know why my test is constantly getting tested like this. Most of us would think that God had abandoned us and left us all alone, but sometimes the test is given to see again what truly lies inside of us, just like he did Hezekiah. But then you got to understand, you realize that nothing is insignificant in your life when you understand the test of your life. Well, Pastor Jay, that's easier said than done. We all have tests in our lives, but they test that we must endure through faith so we can have a testimony to begin to share with others. Then the next thing that I had before I get out of here and lest I bore you with this little nugget, life on earth is about trust. You've always heard preachers say, how can I trust God when I can't even trace God? Some of us are so busy trying to see where God is, but you got to remember, God entrusted us with some things that we failed to do for him. Look at Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. God entrusted them with everything in the world. He gave them the fowls of the air, the creatures of the sea. He gave them dominion over all things. And God has spoken dominion in some of our lives, but we've lost focus and allowed dominion to escape us because even though we've been entrusted with these things, we've allowed bigger things or small things to hinder us from doing what God wanted us to do. Well, let us remember as we close Romans chapter 12, verse 2, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you can prove what the will of God is. You got to be able to not get conformed. Don't conform to the way the world wants you to conform, but be transformed by renewing your mind so that you can prove the will of God that's inside of you. That is good and acceptable and perfect. So on day 1, we found out it all starts with God. Day 2, we dealt with you're not an accident. Day 3, we asked what drives your life. And day 4, we said we were made to last forever. And here on day 5, we were told seeing life through God's eyes. So my challenge to you is that you begin to take a survey of where your life is right now, what your purpose is. Start examining what your purpose is for God. Start realizing that God has purposely done some things and allowed some things to happen in your life because he wanted to see where your heart really is. So as we leave on today, I pray that on tomorrow and on today for the rest of the day that you begin to think about just how good God has been. Start seeing your life through the eyesight of God. Start putting on the spiritual lenses of God and seeing what it is that he has for you. This is my prayer, that for each one of you on today, God bless you and keep you. That's the nugget for day